Our next keynote speaker, Mr. Manoj Chopra. Manoj is the Vice President of Strategic Pricing at Cinemark. Previously, a lot of us know him as the Vice President of Pricing and Margin Management at EssilorLuxottica, the world's largest manufacturer of lenses. And as someone who has worn lenses like his for 50 years, those people are really good at pricing. I can confirm that. And right now, his primary responsibilities are pricing optimization and analytics. Today, he's going to be talking with us about next generation pricing strategy. Manoj also has a PhD in industrial engineering and operations research from Kansas State. Everyone, please welcome our next keynote speaker, Mr. Manoj Chopra.
You got to move if you're ready or not. Give it all that you got. Turn it up now. You got to move. It's your chance to fly with your head held high. Right about now, you got to move. Don't let this move.
Thank you, Kevin, and really excited to be here and share my journey as well as how do we see pricing optimization and pricing strategy going forward in coming years. So as we look into it, as Kevin said, being in like EssilorLuxottica, B2B, I'm in now B2C, Cinemark, and being on both sides of the word, B2B and B2C. The core principles always remain the same, how we solve the problem. Of course, you cannot copy and paste a problem from one company and take it to there. You have to almost start from scratch. So as we look into it, so I want to cover a topic which is very dear to my heart, and that is, how do we do pricing strategy using value engineering concepts? We all, every day, talk about value all the time. Am I getting a good value out of it? And many times, folks will associate value with just the pricing. But implicitly, we're always looking for not just the price, but things that are associated with it. So with that, I want to touch upon the very first and fundamental, that is, how pricing strategy has evolved. If you go like 2 or 3 decades back, it used to be essentially cost plus. And many organizations till today, they are focusing on pricing as a cost plus. Actually, it's really simple. If the cost is $10 and organization decides to maintain a 50% margin, guess what? In 5 seconds, you come with an answer. Done. And there's no need for any software that we are have the booths and so on. But there's definitely a big challenge for it because it's looking only one aspect, that is, I want to maintain a margin rate of 50%. Now, not factoring in what it is going to entail, how does it impact the demand, how it is going to impact the customer value perception, nothing of that sort. And this works very well in an organization that is just starting their journey, and they are not even data is not even there yet. And to be honest, in this case, they don't even need a pricing department. You will never see a strategic pricing department just doing cost plus. You may have a pricing operations, like somebody has decided a price and they are entering the price in the system. And when we look at it from a cost plus standpoint, simplicity is there, no doubt about it, but when it comes to real getting and be competitive, it's not there at all. It can't serve. So I would say like 2 decades back, that's where the whole pricing optimization kind of kicked in. That's the second level. And the basic framework for that is actually simple. Price elasticity of demand, and you take that price elasticity, either you apply in promotions and come up with a promotional design for your flyer or a digital promotion, and factor in other things along with that, market basket analysis and so on. But the basic concept is very simple, price elasticity, that I lower the price, what happens to my demand? If I increase the price, what happens to my demand? And this actually gave a big boost to the whole concept of pricing departments. And that led to, I would say, most of you, if you are part of the strategic pricing department, that is where the department got created, because CEOs did see the value that it's not just FP&A process that maintain a margin, but rather looking at different aspects, looking at historical information and then come up with the price. And sometimes it may be scenario that your margin rate may go down, but margin dollars are going up. And to be honest, that is a journey in education we have to do all the time, even to the CEO level, that my margin rate will go down a little bit because I'm promoting a product, but guess what? We will be able to rake in more margin dollars as well as more revenue. And that's basically a discussion all the time, and you have to convince, if I'm in B2C world, I'm convincing my retail side, like a category manager, VP of merchandising, as well as many times like a FP&A team, because we may be disrupting their margin rate plans. So have to be careful about it, but have the concept that basically led to creation of pricing strategy departments in various organizations. And as we look into it, the next step was several years back, we started looking into it, especially in retail, the key value items and customer perceived value for certain items. Elasticity may come out to be that, yes, you can increase the price and you will not lose the demand. But there are long-term effects of it many times that customer may bought the product, but they are creating a perception about that particular retail chain or a organization. So that's where you start encompassing it through the surveys and so on, and bringing in that aspect that you have to look at not just what data tells you, but also do some qualitative surveys and put them together. And actually, it has really worked well. In my, I would say 2 decades in pricing, don't want to tell my age, but 2 decades in pricing, seen this journey and how we have encompassed different aspects to look into it. And this goes through actually in both the B2B and B2C world. It's essentially the same concept that you look into it. End of the day, customer is making a purchase, and we want to make sure they come back to us again. So one thing that we want to cover today that is very important is, yes, we have done the cost plus. We've seen the benefits of it as well as the negative points of it. Then pricing optimization. Amazing. That was a big boost. Willingness to pay next. And the third and the last I see is always like more towards value engineering. We often talk about value all the time. If as a consumer, when I'm buying a product, I look at, am I getting a value out of it? And many times I'm associating that value with the price, but there are other factors that I'm factoring in. Case in point, wanted to buy a TV recently, and I had 2 choices, go to Costco and get the TV or get from a major electronics retailer. Now, major electronics retailer had some new programs that created stickiness, a total tech program, and if you buy a product for them, you can return for 60 days, as well as anything that happens in 2 years is covered. So those are intangible benefits that help me make a choice. Where do I want to buy? Now, it will always depend on who the customer is and what are you buying. You cannot have one size fits all. That will go towards that. And that's what actually in the value engineering, we will delve into it. Just a quick, I think we all know how the numbers are calculated in cost plus and what it entails. One thing you would notice, and that I observed during the high inflationary times last year, if a product is going through 3 stages, 3 organizations, I buy raw material, and then I sell it to another organization, they process it and sell to another. If the cost of the raw material increased by, let's say, 20%, so $10 item became $12, so it's $2 increase. Guess what, in cost plus what they did? They implemented the 20% increase, a product that goes from $100 to $120. So guess what, they are making more profit, and that's what you may have noticed last year. A lot of companies, their margin rate dollars went significantly up, though the units were hurting, because they just did the cost plus. So $10 item became $12, so $100 became now $120. And now somebody buying that product at $1,000, they moved it to $1,200. Guess what? A $2 impact led to a consumer of $200. Of course, I'm talking like a here 90% margin, but there are various organizations which they enjoy 80 to 90% gross margin. So you got to be careful, am I really killing the demands towards the end? So that's where the whole cost plus never factors in. Luckily, pricing optimization and so on, they do factor that in. And that actually helps in financial planning. If I'm increasing the price, I should be able to tell my FP&A team that, yes, I am going to increase the price, but the demand will go up and the net revenue will be slightly up. And that helps in their budgeting as well as financial planning. So let's look at, from a pricing standpoint, that when we think of pricing, it is not just we are just sheerly pricing the product. We have to understand what we are pricing and how does it fit in the whole consumer journey. Because we have to understand what customer is looking for. So any customer, is just me or anyone, first it starts with the intent. What's the why there's a need for a product or not, or a desire to have a product. The second phase is the research of the product. And third is the real transaction that is happening, that is the purchase process. And the last piece is essentially that post-purchase process. Now, this process happens at a very high level for each and every transaction, whether I'm buying my groceries or I'm going to buy an airplane. I'm not buying an airplane, but if I were to buy an airplane, the process will remain the same. And if I'm buying, let's say, from electronics, I love electronics, so buying a TV, the process will remain the same. If I'm buying a $10 item, the process will remain the same, but the time spent on each component may be changing significantly. Buying groceries, intent is very clear. I need a milk, so I need to go and get the milk. And since I have been buying a product frequently, so I don't have to do a research. That's been done. So I need to go and buy it. Purchase process is very straightforward, and hopefully I don't need a support on post-purchase on groceries. There might be scenarios, but generally not. But if I'm buying an expensive product, then it will entail the whole purchase process as well. So always from a pricing standpoint, engage with merchants, category management team, or the sales team, understand this process. Empathize with the sales team that how do they work with the customer? Because it's a sales team that kind of in B2B, they help the customers to go through this journey. And in B2C world, you would see product research that there are many companies, they have put in bloggers, helping customers steer demand one way or another. And they are like previous companies I have worked with, they had separate website educating customers. And idea is how do I tell them more about the latest product so that they are steering towards it, and I know in those products I make higher margin. So it's a journey. It's just not like just calculating the number, but steering the customers in that direction. And it happens all the time. I mean, I don't want to take example from my companies I work for, but think about it, security systems at home. A decade back, hardly anybody had cameras around their property in the homes. Now look at it, it's almost becoming a must-have. And the companies like Ring, they're doing so much advertisement as well as talking about that whole thing that everyone thinks it's a must-have now. And the research is available, and they have made it very simple. So essentially, they have created a brand new demand, but that didn't exist 2 decades back. Now it's you need a doorbell, you got to see who's coming to your home, and you need to see who's around your home. Though 19% of the time it doesn't help, but it has become a must-have. And that's essentially through the product research side. And companies like that, to be honest, they have amazing post-purchase service as well. You call them up, if you're subscribed to their program, they'll take care of everything. And because what they want is the whole complete cycle, it should go flawlessly. Because that's the way they are going to come back. We are going to have a customer coming back to us and buying the same product again, or enhancing or adding the product. So let's keep that in mind as we think through that this journey is very important, and not just for marketing department or sales department, but as pricing professionals, we have to understand the complete journey as well. So now let's talk from a customer standpoint. What do customers value the most? We all are customers, and in the ideal scenario, I want the best price, best service, and best product quality, as well as best returns. Like if I have something wrong with it, I should be able to take care of the product right away. And but it's just not possible that we are going to get best in all. So that's where you start working through it. That how do I do the surveys to understand what my customers are looking for. And you will not have one size fits all. You will get multiple answers. That is basically your customer segmentation that marketing generally works on. That, okay, this set of customers is looking for the best price. They don't care about post-sale service. They don't care about research or product quality. They're just going for the price. But there are another set of customers who would be looking for a product quality as well as service that is associated. And that leads to essentially same product you could be targeting to different customers based on how you do the upgrade and add-on option. So just a simple thing, let's say I may have a product that I bought, but somebody wants the complete service around it. That's where the whole warranty, post-sale supports comes in, and that customer is willing to pay for those services. So that's where the pricing department, we have to look into it. How do I break the product into different components so that I'm able to price them differently and satisfy different customers for the same product? So what is value engineering? And I thought, okay, I'm going to use ChatGPT because we all on ChatGPT nowadays asking a lot of questions. So I asked ChatGPT, what is value engineering? In general, value engineering concept essentially came from industrial engineering. It's a full subject where we understand the manufacturing and how different components make up the product and how do we do it. Now, we're taking that concept and bringing that to strategic pricing. Same thing, there are multiple components about each product, and that's the most important thing. And how do we evaluate the value of that component? It could be returns, it could be sales and services, it could be the product quality, and so on. And analysis has to be done, like cost and margin analysis for individual component. Because that's very important, because we want to make sure overall we are still maximizing the profit and revenue. And last is, that is very important, that goes in value engineering is, customer is your partner, and you want to make sure that we are enhancing value for the customer. Because that's where we want them to come again and again to us buy the product. And it goes without saying, just for like anything in pricing, it's a multidisciplinary. We are generally a support function. So one side we are working with sales team, other side we are working with the marketing team, third side we are working with the finance. And generally I say, for pricing in B2C or anywhere, we have to think like a marketer, but at the back end, we are crunching the numbers as a finance FP&A person will do. And this is an interdisciplinary approach that we want to take on in value engineering as well and go further on. So as we look into it, the pricing strategy from value engineering, the first and foremost is always what's the objective? And here, I'm deviating from the traditional approach that I want to maximize the profitability. I think that's always embedded, no denying fact. But here, we want to make a shift from selling a product to solving customers' problem. And that's the big shift that I'm not selling a product, I'm helping solve a problem. And there's a particular need customer has. It could be that somebody wants to feel more secure. It's a very intangible thing. And solution is, oh, I may need to have some more cameras. Or it could be that I need to see more clearly farther out, then I need a pair of glasses that are really good. Or I drive a lot, I want to see the road more clearly, then I have a specific solution to have like a polarized lenses and so on and so on. So it's very important that understand what customer is looking for as a solution, or provide them a solution rather than I sell product A, B, and C. And there are certain companies do pretty well, and other companies don't. So that's very important. And second is identify the components, what that make up of. Of course, so product quality will play a role. Price is definitely important. And then you have pre-sales and post-sales. So the next is the value analysis. Once you have identified all the components of the solution, we got to assign values to it. And that's where you start having surveys and talking to the customers and come up with maybe they might be 2 or 3 values that you will see that are really coming up high. Generally, product quality always comes up very high. Everyone wants the best quality product. Now, the second we would be looking at is the post-sale support. And what you notice is the product features do take a backseat in this approach because you're focusing on the solution. And a clear example you would see is in cell phone industry. There's one manufacturer that always will be boasting about the screen size, the resolution of screen, as well as how much RAM it has, how much like the processor, and all those things, battery life, and so on. Oh, it has like 40 to something 100 battery life. Then the other side of the spectrum is another company. They're providing the whole ecosystem to you, and they're talking to a customer. Instead of, hey, I have a 48 megapixel camera, they're talking about, hey, my camera lets you take a picture in the low lights. You can see further. So they go away from the whole 48 megapixel because half of people don't even understand what 48 megapixel is. And so that's another aspect. They're solving the problem. Hey, I have a really good screen that is good on eyes, good on your retina, and that's how they're selling it. Never ever talk about resolution. Somebody wants to know about it, they can. Never talk about what's the RAM. As long as a cell phone is working, is doing the purpose, serving the purpose, that's more important rather than the components. So that's where the whole identification of component is very critical, that we don't go into like a product features, RAM and so on, but rather think, and what problem I'm solving. So then the next is that as we look at the value analysis, this is where essentially a lot of things come into picture. This is where all the science that we have been talking about will come in. You are looking at optimization algorithms that are coming in. You will be actually getting a lot of times, I get information that's very contradictory. Price is saying one, but when I look at the value of the product, that I'm getting out of it is very different. And that's where you start thinking about, are we on the right track? And this has happened to me several times. A product is getting launched. We are pricing product, let's say $200. Customer does not see a value more than $50 or $70. That's the trickiest part. Now, can you lower the price? I think if I even recommend that, that will be my last day in the company. So what you have to do in that case is you have to navigate very carefully in that aspect that if your price value proposition is not coming out to be right. And because many times we are used to maintain certain margin rate. And in this particular case, we as a pricing folks have to play a very key role. The two things that can happen if the value and the price are not, end price is not matching. One is product may have a bad launch, it may not sell. Or second is if we really push the price down, then it's not coming to the ROI that was anticipated by the design R&D and so on. So this is where it gets very tricky. And as pricing professional, it's our job to make sure that we are propagating the risks of the product launch. It has happened to, I think, all of us sometime in the future when we are doing the new product pricing. So create a balance and also create right away risk mitigation strategies. Because it's not about escalating the problem, it's about providing the solution. If this happens, and how I am going to react. It happens in retail as well. Somebody decide that, oh, this year we are going to sell a lot of Christmas trees. And guess what? That didn't happen. And now we are left with tons of inventory. So have those plans ready. Have those simulations ready that if this happens, that's the action. Because many times we will not get enough time to react fast. So have those decisions points created and say, okay, if this happens, this is how I'm going to propose the whole thing. So this is where actually it kind of varies from person to person. Pricing in general can take a very proactive approach. You are sitting on the forefront of with the CFOs and so on and CEOs and have a proactive approach. Second is, of course, you can take a back seat and say, okay, somebody will do the work and I'll just calculate the price. The real value for pricing strategy is taking a proactive approach. Be there, get the eyes and ears of CEO. If they don't value the pricing systems and so on, it's not going to go anywhere. But try to reason them out, because what pricing brings to the table is essentially what CEO is looking for. Better revenue, better margin, and so on. That's very important. And somehow have a connection. The pricing leader should have direct access to CEO so that they are able to explain the details of it if needed. And that goes actually in B2B or B2C as well. And as I mentioned, now we are not going to do everything. So this is where we are working with sales team, understanding B2B, what customer is looking for, because they are going to be your eyes and ears when you are getting the field info. Same thing in retail, B2C or online. You need to get that operational info. Sometimes an awesome pricing strategy implemented wrong will yield to really bad results. It's okay to have a mediocre strategy, but amazing operations and execution. So that's where the collaboration is required, and it's a must-have. Case in point, I mean, we will try 10 things, and 8 will work, and 2 will not work. So when those 2 do not work, you need to be holding hands with marketing, sales, and operations and everyone. Otherwise, we know what happens then. So that's where it's very important that it becomes more like a multidisciplinary approach. So one thing I want to touch upon as we go into it is we talked about value. There are different components of the value. Now, we have done the research within the pricing department, working with the other teams. Now, how do I shout out the value to the customer? And customer may not see it, because what they see is the price, and they may not even factor in many other things that go with it. And so this is where we had a huge success where we look at overall value that is delivered to the customer. And I call it a total value. And it is not just the savings that they see financially. So let's say a customer was supposed to pay $100, but there's some discount they were getting, so they got 20% discount. So that's a saving, no doubt about it. That's a hard saving. But what extra features that we provided them, post-sale supports, training, in B2B world, those things become really important that we are focusing on that aspect as well. Yes, my training department say, oh, this training is costing $1,000. Customer thinks, that's not worth more than $50. That happens. So somewhere in between, talk to the customers, and good to have that connection with customers and say, yes, what's the legitimate value of it? Let's say value comes away $500. That needs to go in here. It's very important that they see that value of the training is being shown here. Post-purchase sales, how did we handle their returns? There's a value associated with it. So all those values need to go in. And if, let's say, I am putting a package together, buy X and Y combined, I get you the savings, that needs to go in there as well. One thing you will see, additional potential savings. This has been a rock star, because in a B2B world, what we noticed was when our sales AE was trying to go to a customer, answer is, I don't have time for you, because I'm busy with the prescriptions and so on. And when they saw a big number, hey, you missed this much, you could have saved this much in last quarter. Right away, they're calling the sales team and saying, hey, can you come over and explain what did I miss? And that's where you have an opportunity as a sales team, when we're supporting them, two things. One is explain the details. Second is, that's an opportunity for us to sell a new product as well. So it is not just some report. It has to be insightful. It has to show the value that can be given to the customer. Along with that, has something that can take action. And it has to be specific to that customer. That's very important. I mean, I cannot show the details here, but this has been a phenomenal thing. And the most important thing, missed opportunities. We call it missed opportunity or potential savings. This is where you engage, and this is where I'm not the back-end work is very, very detailed. There's a prescriptive analytics working at the back end, understanding how customer demographics are there. Let's say I'm talking to B2B, they are serving their customer. How do you take that information? Objective is you make your customer in B2B win, they are going to stick with you because you are helping them improve their revenue and profitability. So for that, the focus changes from, hey, I need to give them a lower cost, rather than become, how do I help you maximize the revenue? And that's where it's been a big opportunity for us and leading to big growth. And not just like their growth, they are growing organically, but it also minimizes the churn. Because that's another thing in pricing in B2B side, customers will keep on switching and the sales team will come back to say, hey, I need a better deal because otherwise this customer will leave. That happens to us a lot, and these sort of things helps. And a good salesperson in B2B would be doing it. They may be scribbling on a piece of paper. But an average salesperson, we are listing down 10 or 12 values that we are providing them and helping them answer that question. And another thing, we like to compare ourselves. So that's where the last side comes in, your savings and how do folks like businesses like you are saving. And it says like 65%, essentially, they could have gone 100% all the way, but they are at 65, and we are showing that in this particular example, that you're doing better than your peers. So give kudos to them. Pass on the message from pricing to the sales team so that they can take it to the end customer. It's very important from that perspective. So this whole thing started 5-6 years back, and it has become a core strategy how we think about it. And different companies do it, like you have to go to Kohl's, at the bottom and say, oh, you saved $534. But right away, we will laugh it out because the price is so jacked up that that 70% off doesn't mean much. Even Kroger does that. This is not just a price saving. These are all the things and the value-added services we are providing to the businesses or a customer. So keep in mind, this can be applied, and it will vary from business to business. It has to be designed from ground up because the value proposition for each organization is going to be unique. You can never copy and paste a strategy from one company to another company because they have different cost system, different customer base, and different value propositions. So from that perspective, provide that information to them, the sales team, which in turn can take it to the end customer. If you are in a B2C world, this is the best way to connect with the customers. And some organizations have started doing that. They are directly sending information to the customers. Like I'm a part of Walmart Plus membership, and they send an email, oh, because the groceries, you have saved 122 hours. I don't know how they calculate it, but I feel good about it that, okay, I saved 122 hours, and then I calculate my wage is $10 per hour. Okay, I saved $1,200. So right away, when I can do that calculation, those things are helping for me to stay in that program. And that's where, because they're highlighting the value. Everyone is trying to kind of dip their toe into this concept, how do I shout out the value? Otherwise, it becomes an expense that I'm a member and I'm paying $10 and I'm calculating, am I really getting value of that? So make sure, as a strategic pricing department, when you are putting a deal together, have those components being added as a part of the whole process. Okay. I think, yep.
All right, round of applause for Manoj. Very nicely done, sir. Thank you very much. Do you have time for a question or two?
Absolutely, yes.
Please raise your hand if you have a question for Manoj Chopra. There's one here to the audience right.
Thank you very much for everything you presented today. I think for me, coming from a SaaS industry, one of the points of challenge is really understanding how do we get out of the binary situation of deal by deal and actually see the bigger picture with the P&L result. So in light of that, which you got into willingness to pay, which is something that client, we need to have a proper research for that, but we need to align that to make sure that we are properly covering our costs, because cost of Azure and Google Cloud and everything is increasing right now, AWS as well. So in light of that, what is your strategy in terms of recommending so we can speak to the client value and make them understand that we need to align in this willingness to pay to make sure that we are properly covering our cost and meeting our bottom line profit?
So I think that's a research that would start internally with the company. That is, what are we offering? Yes, I'm offering services X, but divide those services into its individual components. Absolutely, we got to cover the overall cost and all the whatever the SG&A is, and no doubt about it. And there will be certain points our costs are high in one of the components. It cost me $10, but customer doesn't see that, or somebody else is offering a lot cheaper. That happens all the time. But the other components, I'm assuming there will be something unique about that business, the offering that we have to the customer, the others are not. If it's not, let's investigate. Every organization offers something unique. Our idea is to highlight that and make them aware that this is something unique, and in their mind, create a need and desire to have that. And then you can assign a value to it, and then essentially you should be able to win the deal, yes. We can definitely talk more offline. Would like to understand, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for your question. We have time for perhaps one more question for Manoj Chopra. Please raise your hand and keep it up with the knowledge that the lights are right in our eyes and we may not be able to see you right away. Manoj, I have a question for you, please. You talked a lot about value engineering and, of course, the importance on what your customers value. Mm-hmm. So my question is, when you talk with your customers, I know that when you were with Essilor, Luxottica, if you would have asked me what's important, I would say, oh, I just want a low price. When really what you do is part of someone's face for the next 18 months or something like that, and that's the furthest thing from my mind. Really, I want to see and be seen and hopefully try to look okay doing both of them there. How do you handle situations where you have an interviewer bias like that, where someone will answer a question and say that really they want a low price, but really they're more interested in the benefits from their perspective?
I think that happens a lot. We all want the lowest price, but what we have to come up with is what's the value-added services. So let's say example of like lenses in the frames. To be honest, as a consumer, we spend 90% time looking for a frame and probably 10% time selecting the lenses. Though we all know that we see through the lenses, not through the frames. And these are two main components of that. So when it comes to, in that particular example, what happens is you have to educate the customer. And first and foremost, you have to educate the doctor. What do we bring to the table? Because doctor, you have to understand from their standpoint, doctor is selling a pair of glasses to you for $200. Where as a consumer, I would say, oh, I can get a Zenni optical for $30. And how good or bad that is. So there's an education that has to be given to the patients, and we have to prepare our doctors with that education. Same thing with like sunglasses. You can get sunglasses for $30, sometimes $5, but they could be hurting your eyes rather than helping you. And that education is there, and that's where organization will create separate channels independent of the company or organization that are talking about it. And there are a lot of websites which will talk about such things. And there's always companies to come together and create a consortium so that together they are talking about these values and so on. And that helps actually education, yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your answer. Everyone, how about a round of applause for Manoj Chopra? Thank you so much. Nicely done. This is for you. Thank you. We appreciate it.